Hi everyone. I hope you are safe and healthy and doing well right now. We are on day, I believe, 3 of quarantine. And while we wait for people to join, make sure to click that share and that like button in the midst of COVID, who are running against horrible Democrats. We have Eva Putsova, who is running for Congress in Arizona. She is running against Tom O'Halloran, who was a Republican just a few years ago. He became a Democrat in 2016 so he could run in a Democratic district. It's bullshit. So I want to talk a little bit about this breaking news regarding Vice presidential hopeful Senator Amy Klobuchar. I'm taking my earrings off because they're clicking. Amy Klobuchar, who of course is on the short list for, as far as we know, for vice president, could be Joe Biden's pick, right? Well, a report just came out in The Guardian that she is being called out because she declined when she was a district attorney. She was the Hennepin, I don't know how to say it properly, county attorney, where she spent 8 years before she was a senator, right? And she was in charge of prosecution of bad acting police officers. This is a criticism she's already received from the Black Lives Matter movement during her during her presidential run. And it just came out that she declined to prosecute multiple police officers cited for excessive force and did not prosecute the officer who kneeled on George Floyd, his neck, as he protested that he couldn't breathe. This is the same officer. The officer who killed George Floyd had there's a history, there's a pattern of behavior across the country in police departments in red states and red cities and blue states and blue cities of officers who have used excessive force, in some cases killed people, who stay on as officers and never get prosecuted. And here we have a Democrat who says she likes to get things done. Well, what do you like to get done, Amy Klobuchar? Because it looks like all you care about is giving perks to major businesses and oil companies and possibly private prison companies. But you sure don't seem to be protecting your citizens who don't look like you or sound like your donors. Ex-Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin saw at least 10 conduct complaints during his 19-year tenure before he was rightfully fired on Tuesday. This was in a database of documents of complaints against the police. Minneapolis. And she's on the vice presidential shortlist, not to mention we know Joe Biden's history of writing the crime bill that imprisoned 1 out of 3 black men in America. This is the same Democratic Party who likes to hashtag believe black women, support black women. But at the end of the day, they're ripping apart, they are architects for ripping apart black and brown communities in this country, and we are supposed to sit here silent. She declined to prosecute Chauvin and other officers involved for the first death, which occurred in the first death, which happened in October of 2016, note, while she was running for Senate. The case was under investigation when Klobuchar took office in the Senate in January 2007 and later went to a grand jury, which declined to charge the officers. He was late. This officer who killed George Floyd in 2006 was under investigation. And then he was later placed on leave when he and the other officers shot and wounded a Native American man in 2011. How can you call yourself a Democrat if this isn't just staying silent. This is willfully choosing your political career because you were running for office over prosecuting a man who has a pattern now of shooting and excessive force and killing people. How can you even claim to be a Democrat or be in office if you are willing to let that happen and not prosecute? Because not prosecuting is essentially saying continue to do what you're doing and killing people that don't look like you or sound like you. This isn't just about firing a police officer who has used excessive force and murdered somebody who didn't do anything wrong, who expressed that he could not breathe. This isn't just about firing them. It's about convicting them and prosecuting them and making sure that that pattern of behavior stops immediately and people are held accountable. I just don't understand at this point, why are we still having these conversations about whether or not a police officer should be fired or put on administrative leave? They should be convicted of murder. And this the buck stops at the district attorney's office, the buck stops at the mayoral level, the buck stops at the leadership level. If your lawmaker is staying silent through these occurrences, then they're allowing this behavior to continue, and it does, because as we see with Chauvin, he did it multiple times. It's not just about retraining a police force. It's not just about making sure that their benefits are stripped. I mean, that is where we are in the conversation. In New York City, just last year, the conversation that was being had between lawmakers, progressive lawmakers, was, well, yes, I think that these police officers should be put on administrative leave and that they should lose their benefits when they're fired. How about they should be convicted? How about there needs to be some accountability? How about we change the way that the system works when everybody decides to actually step up and take action, but they're so afraid of the conservative police union or appearing soft on crime or whatever the neoliberal talking points are, or being exposed for taking private prison money. N Stark 7, I think this was the bump Kamala needed to be VP. I don't see Biden picking Klobuchar. Perhaps, but was she all that much better? I think it opens up the conversation around criminal justice that needs to be had, but where do we go? We have to hold these Democrats accountable. And if you have a lawmaker, I mean, this is what I want to hear. I want to hear other Democrats calling out bad acting Democrats. I want to see existing elected officials, existing lawmakers, especially those who are not up for re-election, who call themselves Democrats. I want them saying that this does not belong in the Democratic Party. You cannot stand on the sidelines. You cannot stay silent. You cannot be held completely hostage by the police union, which is a right-wing union in New York City. You cannot do that. They need to call on their fellow Democrats to stand up for what is right. Because otherwise, they're just a bunch of Southern Democrats spread around the country, having not just learned nothing, but they're do-nothings. This is the do-nothing campaign. You can't just run a silent campaign against Donald Trump. You actually have to stand up for something. You can't just say that the black community got you elected. You have to be there with the black community. And I shouldn't be the one who has to say that as a white woman. These are not Democrats. The effing nerve the Democratic Party has shoving these people down our throats, and the disgust that frontline communities have. I mean, of course they're angry. Of course we're frustrated. I'm sorry, that's my dog in the background. My mom just showed up and he's just as angry. I think we need to something has to change. We have to readjust our strategy because, you know, it shouldn't just be on the Black Lives Matter movement. It should be on the senators, the white Democratic senators who watch their colleagues stand silent when they should be standing up. It should be on the more courageous Democratic mayors around the country who are willing to stand up and fire these cops and have levels of accountability. And they should call out their fellow mayors for not doing so. That is what's going to push this power. We talk about white allies making change. How about white mayoral allies? How about the Democratic lawmakers holding their fellow Democrats to account? Okay, my dog is screaming. I need some help over here. Can someone let the dog out? Thank you. My mom just showed up and my dog went incredibly crazy. Something fundamentally has to shift in the way that we are pushing back as a movement against these injustices. Because it keeps happening. And it keeps happening in big cities, and it keeps happening in democratic cities, and it keeps happening as the Democrats pretend to be the party that represents people of color. But nothing is actually happening locally. Everybody is so afraid of taking on special interests in the Democratic Party, even the progressives. You know, Bill de Blasio was one of the most progressive presidential candidates, right? I mean, he really was. Yet he is silent. Yet Black and brown communities are being targeted right now. You know, during COVID and during the pandemic, people are getting arrested for not wearing masks or not social distancing in Black and brown communities. And that has to do with the history of actions that reflect white supremacy in our country. And we all need to be educated. I said to somebody on Twitter today, I was like, educate me, I need to understand why. And it was a tweet about a video that a man put out on Now This about, he was just talking about what he as a human is like, to show himself as a Black man who's a human. Literally, he just was like, I like ice cream, I like doing yoga, but I'm a human being, don't call the cops on me. And so I asked a Black man, an activist who called it out, saying that we shouldn't have to, in his words, you know, he shouldn't have to ask for permission. And I agree, but I didn't understand. I said, please educate me. I want to know more. And we should all be asking those questions. This is a movement to be led by the people who are front and center and feeling it firsthand, but we all have a duty to back up that movement. We all have a duty to speak out against the Amy Klobuchars of the world. And I hope Kamala Harris does, because, and it shouldn't be put on her either, I shouldn't say that. But I hope Elizabeth Warren does. Hell, I hope Tim Kaine does. This type of behavior, a lack of accountability in this party, a silence in this party, is what is rotting this not even just this party, this country. Climate change is right there in front of us, and it's affecting Black and brown communities the most. Everything, you know, from COVID, the economic recovery, to our criminal justice system, is affecting Black and brown communities the most. Hell, running a campaign. You know, it's our economic system is a system that is designed to oppress our most vulnerable members of community and pit us against each other. And I think that we have to strategize. Those of us who have a little bit more privilege, or a lot more privilege, or a bigger megaphone, need to strategize how we push back so that the Elizabeth Warrens of the world are not silent in this moment. So that Our Democratic senators who may not have the record of Amy Klobuchar are not silent in this moment. Our Democratic nominee was the architect of the crime bill. And the fact that we are even having a conversation about these people who have such horrendous records when it comes to Black and brown communities shows that our party has so much work to do, that our movement has so much work to do. And of course, the right wing and the centrists are going to paint the riots the way that they always do. And they're going to use that as an excuse to go after communities even more so, to police them more. And then it's just an endless cycle. All right, I have a question here from N. Starks 007. No progress with the Black president. My people die without consequence. Quote, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. Yes. That's what happens. That's exactly, I mean, it was like on cue. You knew I was about to say that about the riots. Hi, 12. 100% love your content. You've converted my mom. LOL. How? Tell me about that. I love converting parents. I don't know how I do that, but I guess that's the goal. Also on this week's show, if you're not already a patron, go to patreon.com/the Nomiki Show. We are putting out our podcast early. We have some extra content, and it'll go out this weekend on Patreon. And we have we talk about the climate movement and what it's going to take to psychologically shift the mindsets of Americans, even those who believe in climate change, to understand that the crisis is happening right now, not in the future. It doesn't happen, it's happening to everybody. And I think all of us on this line know that, but how do we message that? How do we organize around that? How do we really take power into our own hands? Because that, if there's one lesson I can give you, I can share that I'm personally experiencing now that Bernie's not running for president. It's sad that he's not running for president, but also use this as an opportunity to realize, okay, now is where the movement building happens with all of us. We don't have to depend on Bernie to lead us. We don't have to ask for permission. We can sit here and rethink the strategy because it is going to be on us. I'm grateful to all of you. Make sure to click like, subscribe, share. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. And I am going to go off right now and make myself some dinner. I hope you all have, these are frustrating times, and I'm disgusted that we're even entertaining the idea of an Amy Klobuchar, especially after this news comes out, that we already knew, by the way, just reinforced. All right, take care, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe.